Hello and welcome to the Paranormal Concept Show, exclusive to the Paranormal UK Radio Network. And once again, you've got started with my dulcet tones and not our lovely Paul Rook, who is still on a break. However, I still have the stupendous Richard Clements with me. Good evening, Richard.
Good evening, my dear. How are you?
Oh, I'm very well, thank you. Very well indeed.
Oh, that's good to hear. That's good to hear.
Yes, been a very busy girl behind the scenes. And tonight we are joined in the studio by the absolutely fabulously amazing Beth Darlington. Welcome, Beth. How are you?
I'm good, lovely lady. How are you?
Very well, thank you. Very looking forward to this very interesting conversation I'm sure we're going to have tonight.
Can't wait.
Yeah,
Very much
be interesting to see which way it goes.
Wow. It's almost like a paranormal roundtable discussion tonight, guys. I thought I'd throw a few topics out the table and see where a conversation leads us on this one. So I need you fully engaged mentally to help take me through this next few hours of paranormal discussion.
Okay, I'm going to try. I don't know about our guests, but I'll give it a go.
Well, me too.
First things first, Beth, last time we spoke to you, you actually had not long been to the UK. You've been here a little while now. You've been through one of the worst situations in the world, the pandemic, in the UK. How has things been for you? What have you been up to? Let's start with that.
Oh, it's been, as you can imagine, one interesting roller coaster ride for many people for so many different reasons. You know, sort of the first 6 months were quite ideal, you know, sort of getting out there, meeting people, going to conventions, joining up for associations. And then COVID decided to rear its delightfully ugly head and put a horrible stop on a lot of plans that I had already in the wings, and obviously, you know, paused. And then obviously we had our different lockdowns. So there was sort of glimpses of hope on the horizon, some places, but of course, obviously, you know, we obviously had our different lockdowns, and that stopped again. So it really had to, I think for me, you have to be more adaptable in the sense, okay, well, I'm really interested in this topic and I'm researching and speaking to people, networking and growing. And then it's like, okay, so I'm going to have to find other ways to do this remotely. So I know some wonderful introverted people were absolutely applauding this situation for their own, sort of situation to deal with. But for me, I'm also very much an extrovert as well. So I found it quite a struggle. Because a lot of what I do is built on networking and physically meeting people and going to conventions. So that taken out, I had to be really adaptable again. So that was probably the biggest challenge out of this. But again, you know, we're kind of slinking out of it somewhat. And there's Halloween at the time of this recording is kind of around the corner. So there's a lot more going on, obviously, this year than it was last year. But yeah, it's been a difficult ride, but not an impossible one, I would say. So it's had to, you know, and I hate saying, oh, I had this project, and, you know, it's sort of in inverted commas and not being able to say anything about it, you know, but essentially that's all I can say at the moment, because things are still in the works. But it's just a lot more of a pause button on a lot of fantastic avenues that I wish to have taken. But unfortunately, again, a lot of people would have had the same situation as well. So it's just being adaptable to doing a lot more online stuff, which is not too bad. But again, I said I love just going out and meeting people and conventions, and that's my big thing, and that's how I learn. So yeah, it's been interesting. It's been an interesting ride.
Yeah, I agree with that one. It's definitely been interesting. And I think, though, I tell you what I think came out of that was some of the big groups that actually went online. So like the SPR, ASAP started doing online talks and conventions and things like that, which actually made it a lot more accessible to the ghost hunting community than it would have when they settle in their little hubs in London. Do you know what I mean? So I think the outreach of it has been an actually positive thing for the paranormal community.
Oh, absolutely. I've seen a lot of feedback from both the Ghost Club, SPR, and ASIP. And there are people, I think only the Ghost Club have recently, only as of this past weekend, had their first face-to-face monthly meeting. And it was great. And they had a lot of people there. But they've also obviously had a lot of feedback from people saying, well, are you going to continue on having your online ones as well? Because a lot of people, like you mentioned, around the world can actually join.
Yeah, definitely. And I do think this is actually the first point I was going to bring up, was this void that seems to be in between. We had Cal Cooper on last week on the show, or a couple of weeks ago now it was on the show. And who's very much, he's a council member of the SPR, fantastic person to speak to. He's so knowledgeable. But there is a void between that, the society groups, and the people going out and doing the investigating. And he got quite itchy, I would say, about the term investigation, because how they investigate towards what people are doing in the field is two completely different worlds. But we need to bring the two worlds together to actually try and progress both
Absolutely.
sides. Do you not feel?
Oh, absolutely, 100%. I think a lot of what SPR and ASIP are about, of course, and obviously a little bit of the Ghost Club. Probably more SPR and ASIP is about investigating claims, witness claims, personal experiences. But kind of when it comes to the Ghost Club, and some people obviously themselves that identify themselves as paranormal investigators, it's more about the location they investigate. So, and that's what they see investigators as different. It's like, well, you're looking at claims people are making. That's an investigation, as opposed to actually just looking at it. Oh, look, this is a fabulous location. Let's go and investigate this. That's to them, or not to them. I said to others that. It's a very different ball game. It's a very different reason for investigating, as opposed to actually what traditionally investigating is meant to be, is about actual people's claims, what they've had experienced in a location, as opposed to the actual location being haunted itself.
That seems to be the definitive split, isn't it? Whereas they'll go out and collect the witness statements, like you say, and literally just listen to people's stories more than anything else. And then just sit and observe to see if anything anomalous is a better word, happens in that location, and not worry about tech, not worry about trying to make it happen, just let it unfold in front of them and record it. That's basically it, isn't it, from their perspective? Yeah. Whereas like the ghost hunting teams, right, they're all the tech and all the gadgets, and as Barry Frankish a couple of weeks ago said, SWAT team it up and go in all kitted up and try and actually almost force an anomalous happening and record it if they can. But there's a lot of misrepresentation of what they're witnessing when they go out. They're not taking into normal, rational explanations and good psychological explanations on that. So the online stuff for me was fantastic, because I can't get to London for the time the talks start at 7:00 at night through rush hour. Not a chance. Last time I did it, I was late because just because of how it ran. But so to do the online thing is an absolutely fantastic way of outreaching to the paranormal community. What other ways do we feel that we could bridge this gap, bring it together more?
Oh, good question. It's I think involving, it's almost like say involving, I don't want to be ageist, but younger people that have I say, and I've mentioned this before, and obviously on your fabulous show as well, the middle ground investigators. So involving more middle ground, so a sense of you've kind of been through the sort of the work path of ghost hunting and the initial excitement about that, and thinking, oh, there's some interesting stuff I've experienced. I want to explore that more, and then that obviously takes it to a next level where you start to explore from a research and learning perspective, and then obviously for people who may not quite be up the academic level yet, like as I always openly say, and I don't have any academic qualifications whatsoever, but at the same time I'm interested in academic topics. So sometimes for me that can be such a bridge that can be hard to make, because the terminology often used for such valuable information, it just literally is like, as I mentioned to many people, it's like eating a lemon. It's not kind. It's not kind to my ears.
It's not.
It's necessary, but it's not kind. So it's like
I suppose it can make you smart a bit, can't it?
It does hurt one's mind, I must admit, sometimes. And there are times where I will read something over multiple times, and then I'll actually interpret the way that I would understand it, and I would write it out, so then I know what that has been come across as. But again, for me, having that, I think it's bridging that gap, and I think it's the best way to do that is to not say dumb it down, because we're not dumb people in the sense that we've got a general interest, but not all of us has an academic background. So being able to make the information easier to understand. It's the same information, but just in a more simplified way. That's all it really needs to be. And it's fascinating stuff. Like some of the stuff, the lectures I've watched with SPR, like, I think there was one that was about sort of the minds and intuitiveness of animals, and how like birds all flock together, and how animals know when other animals are about to have babies, and little things like that, things that they can't physically see but they sense, and all sorts of animals in the sea, and how the sonar and how that all works. And you think at first, oh, what's this got to do with ghost hunting? Seriously, I want to get up there with a haunt. I want a poltergeist. But no, at the same time, this is actually really interesting stuff, because then you start to see the links of the possibility of how we may work instinctively when it comes to the possibility of something being haunted in our home. And that's when it starts to become really exciting. So although the information can be very dry and hurting one's mind occasionally with the way in which it's written, the information that it holds is actually quite relevant and actually quite valuable.
Yeah, the layman term it. It's like going to a solicitor, isn't it? And sitting in front of a solicitor, and then they're waffling off, and you're thinking, what does this mean? What is this? Say it normally so I can understand it. You know what I mean? And like you say, I remember sitting in a lecture for a high-speed video camera, and the guy was the research and design guy, was up there so proud of this thing he's designed, and he was waffling off, and I'm scribbling notes. And then afterwards I sat down and I wrote it out how I could understand it, taking out all the technical questions. And the amount of times I've read papers and I've had to spend half the time Googling, what does this word mean?
Yes. Oh, my word. My Google is probably tired and broken by now. Yes.
What do they mean by this word? Yeah, it's getting past that level, isn't it? It's getting, having the time and the energy, because it's exhausting. I'm not going to lie. I'm not academic in that way at all. But getting past that is a key point, I think. And like you say, get younger people who bridge that middle gap, that can almost become translators.
That's the best way. That's the best word. That's perfect term to use. Absolutely, translators. Absolutely, like you say, you look at something. This happens for this reason, and to me, I'm a visual learner, so I like to draw it out sometimes. So again, not everybody's reading research style, but also may not be academically have an academic background. So some people are visual learners. So even drawing it out or showing it, like there's some fantastic little mini videos on YouTube about even just the laws of physics. You think, how can you simplify that? Like, good luck, pal. But it's like they do a great job.
Yeah, there's some great live video. Yeah, YouTube is a fantastic resource. Everybody is all I'm going to say on that one.
Well, yeah, I've used it many a time. Yeah, and I think, as you say, Beth, it's those sort of we need interpreters, and and a lot of us do actually sort of say we're investigators, so that should be all part of the investigation technique, shouldn't it?
Absolutely, and also being open to maybe other ways that can explain the experiences that we have when we're in these locations. And that's all. Like it's not like we should forget about the people that have been doing this for the last 150 years. Like, why reinvent the wheel? There's actually people out there that have found ways or researched ways and looked at data and experiences of the reason why people experience this.
Yeah.
And that's already kind of been done before. But again, the information is written in the way currently that could be something that for me would take some time to absorb and actually get into. There's, again, so many wonderful books out there and so many great courses, but sometimes it can be so dry. It's almost off-putting. And I think that's another thing as well. It's almost like you could look at something and go, this is a great read. It's a research paper someone's written about this particular type of phenomena that someone wants to explore more. Oh, that looks great. And you read the first paragraph and you're sort of like, now what have I got to do for the shopping? And no, hang on a second. No, your mind just goes, wee, and just wanders off elsewhere. So yes, interpreters, translators, and just that same information, but in a way that's layman and digestible.
Most definitely. Talking of when we've had to research something on layman, we talk about rabbit holes that you go down, and it does lead into lots of different areas you wouldn't ever imagine that you would have to research, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think one of my worst nights researching was looking into window manufacturer and glass. to see if it could possibly cause an EMF fluctuation. And it can. Old glass can cause an EMF fluctuation. That was what I garnered from that particular evening's research.
That's right, but that's great. That's what it's about. That's good on for you for doing that, because some people may be like, oh, it might not. Okay, whatever. Let's go watch another Ghost Adventures episode.
Yeah.
Good on you.
Yeah, I plowed through that for quite a few hours, and oh my God, it's so boring. But I learned something from that process, and it also gave me a possible rational explanation for some of the anomalies we were receiving on the night in the area that we were receiving it. So, I felt that was worthwhile. What are some of those little rabbit holes that you two guys have been down that you never thought you would have to?
Oh, goodness. I think it was only recently I was watching a seminar, someone talking about a particular poltergeist phenomena that would actually set their electrical goods on fire. And I thought, and luckily, one's fiance is actually a mechanical engineer. So I thought, oh, here we go. here's a tough one for you, sweetheart. I'll pick your 30 years worth of knowledge and see if you can figure this one out. So yeah. Brilliant. He's such a good knowledge base. Really, it's honestly, it's fantastic. He knows all how things, work and contracting and heat and all this kind of stuff. So I said, well, what can it happen? Can a fire erupt spontaneously in an electrical, like a computer monitor on its own? Can it set itself on fire? Is that physically possible? And he's like, well, there's a triangle of fire, and so this, and you've got oxygen to this, and you've got need to feel for this. And I'm sitting there going, oh, but this is interesting stuff to me, because then if I come across a case and it's something like this happens, I'm like, do you know there's a triangle of fire here? But it's layman terms, and I understand it, and I didn't, it's not like, and obviously he definitely knows what he's talking about. He's got all the knowledge and experience, but it's really nice. Again, that's probably another thing as well, is having people around you or know of people you can approach with these kinds of questions and say, can this actually happen? So it was great there. It's like, yeah, technically it can, if there's this and that, and heat and all this, and I was like, okay, all right, so technically it can. Because I said, but can it relight after it's been taken out, like by a fire extinguisher? Now tell me that.
Yeah, it leads down a whole different world, doesn't it?
It does, because there was this claims that this particular equipment would relight after it had been put out. I'm like, can it happen? He goes, no, if it's been smothered, it's got no oxygen. If it's been used, the fire extinguisher has been used correctly, it's taken the oxygen out, the fire will not be able to relight again. Like, so that was one of my recent rabbit holes. What about you, Richard?
Oh, me, I actually, I've been buying a little bit of equipment lately, just for, sort of, and just so I've got it, I don't tend to use it that much, but I have acquired a bit. But I've always wanted a piece of equipment that will alert you to when there's a power drainage from a battery. And I couldn't find anything anywhere, and I was trying to explain it to an electrician, and they sort of looked at me as if I had rocks in my head. They're sort of going, yeah, well, why would you need something to do something like that? I think, humour me,
yeah.
And but it's funny how you go. I sort of saw something online, and I sort of followed it up, and I wasn't even thinking about this sort of like imaginary piece of equipment that I sort of thought of in my head, and this piece of equipment just actually turned up. There is a battery drainer that will alert you to an electrical drain on your batteries. So I thought,
That's fantastic. Like, if you got the name, I wouldn't mind having a look at that. That's great.
I will let you know. I will actually go back to it and sort of try and sort of dig it out. But yeah, I'll let you know, Beth, definitely.
That'd be good. That'd be really good. That'd be handy, really handy.
That would be, wouldn't it? Yeah.
You've also bought, what was that thing you had when we did sandwich? A lightning strike thing.
Yes, I brought a lightning. You can actually sort of, apparently, when you get to a certain age of sort of like 40, people need bits of equipment to tell you how many lightning strikes there are a minute or something. But I actually brought this, just a small, you clip on your belt, and it will actually tell you when there's been a high discharge of electricity in a location. And it will just go beep. That's all it would do. And I used it at the location we just went to, but but we didn't get anything there. You know, again, trying to sort of marry it up. Is there electrical forces at play with paranormal activity? So the first thing you really got to sort of do, I feel, is to work out, is there any electrical fields at play here in the atmosphere around you? So yeah, that was another little thing I've got, you know, and just as sort of like an EMF and stuff like that.
And where did you think of that one, Richard? Where did that come from?
What do you mean? Oh yes, so I actually was watching The Secrets of Skimwalker Ranch, and all the investigators there actually carried them. You know, it was sort of something, and I just saw it on that again, another rabbit hole. Watching it, and I thought, oh, a lightning detector. I can see that might come in handy. So off I trot, sort of down to eBay or Amazon usually. Managed to pick one up quite reasonably as well.
Nice.
So that was a little rabbit hole. We the three of us, like me, Richard, and Paul, sort of disappeared down for a little while. Was Skimwalker Ranch, and I'd not really paid much attention to it, to be fair, because it involves the ufology world, and I don't really get the ufology world of under the paranormal umbrella term. That's the one world that I sit there and I do a lot of eye rolling and oh my godding and jeepers kind of motions too. What area for you, Beth, is that kind of feeling?
Oh, well, it's interesting with ufology. It's I know to me, I'm open-minded about the fact that we are not the only living creatures in this particular area of this. You know, whatever we can like comprehend. You know, it's in space. I think it'd be quite, for me, I think it's silly to think we're the only living organisms in our vast space that we actually understand of the world and our space as it is. So for me, when it comes to ufology, I've only dealt with maybe a couple of cases, I think, personally, and it's just a lot of, obviously, again, a lot of personal experiences. I did get to go to not to Area 51, the border of Area 51, because nobody can get into Area 51 because you will die or I will be arrested. But I actually did a couple of years ago, well, not a couple of years ago, probably about 5 or 6 years ago, I actually ended up going to the border of Area 51. And that was a very interesting experience in itself, just being around that sort of location, and also the the little alien cafe was great as well. But as far as ufology, again, it's a very, particularly I guess say that the groups that I've spoken to in front of ufology groups and stuff, it's a very different style of investigator, I would admit. There's a very particular type of personality I think I find is more drawn to ufology as opposed to people looking at haunting cases. They're a lot more secluded individuals, I find, because of a lot of that flack they've copped, generally over the years with a lot of skeptics. And you can kind of understand, but then again, it's almost like decades and decades of bullying, so you can understand why, people over years will just be like, I'm not saying a word to anybody I don't trust. But I think there are some really interesting cases, and obviously with Skimwalker Ranch being, there's obviously theories about this, why that place is so active, and obviously one of them being about UFOs. But I've been I've been sky watching as well. I've been a couple of times to that. That's been interesting too. But again, I'm so new to it. I haven't had a lot of exposure that it'd be something I need to do a lot more of to be able to go, okay, that actually could be something that could be considered possibly paranormal or possibly quite strange in the sky. But yeah, I think mine's like a parachute, lovely people. It works better when it's open.
I like that.
Very true. I like that too. I just find I think the problem for me is when I was younger, I used to read a lot of science fiction, and what I hear repeated reminds me so much of that, and that media experience crossover seems to be a lot more prevalent in that world than it does elsewhere, if that makes sense. And that's the problem I have with it, because as I say, I used to read a heck of a lot when I was a lot younger. It used to be one of my genres, and I ended up going into fantasy fiction off the back of sort of like through the evolution of reading that I've done over my time. And yeah, there's stories and stuff that I read years ago that those themes are still there running through. And when you look through various psychological things and then what people are experiencing, you can sort of like see the tie-in, and it makes me wonder the subconscious levels that are coming or bubbling up through experience, or what people are experiencing that could be triggered by our external environment, is more the case there. I do not think we're the only thing out there in the universe. I'm not that arrogant to think that. I have a problem with the, like Richard does as
Yeah.
well, the bricks and mortar of it. How, how many different types of #alien there are supposed to be, and spacecraft that people have witnessed. That's a heck of a lot of people traveling those millions of miles of space to get here. For what reason? To abduct a poor person who lives in the outback somewhere. If you're going to pick someone to abduct, pick someone better. Come on. Do you know what I mean? You've done a lot of abducting people. Surely you've got a good cross section of society now. You know what I mean? I can't get past that, and I don't. That's why I have big trouble with the traveling through space. I could understand it more going through maybe a cross-dimensional thing, but even then I have issues with that, because science has proved a heck of a lot, right? And
Yeah.
science has a massive place in this particular area, in regards to it's metal, it's hardcore material substance people are discussing. So surely there would be something now that we could at least explain on that front. Personally, that's my
But
personal opinion.
But the explanations you do get are all very sort of, oh, well, with ufology, it's very easy for the ufologists to sort of like talk their theory and what they believe. Oh, yeah, that's good, that's good. But as soon as they come to a problem with it, they tend to overlap it with a conspiracy theory or something. Oh, well, that's just the government keeping it secret. And because it's those little holes, the narrative isn't really sort of straight. It's very sort of up and down, I feel.
Absolutely. And it can be it's a tricky area, because again, you're dealing with people's personal experiences, and again, it's like with hauntings. You can't sit and say you never experienced that. They experience something, as it was someone else who may have felt that they had a haunting experience, but what it is, we don't know. And even with ghosts and spirits, like we don't, well, science confirms so far, it's like there is no such thing as, and that's what we have to respect. But people are experiencing something. So whatever is going on, like you say, it's like, is it because of the type of people, the personality? Is it, does it attract that kind of person, and are they more susceptible to interpret experiences from their past as something possibly being alien as opposed to something else? Are they more susceptible? Like this, like you said, this is another little rabbit warren that we talk about. So it's like, let's go down this. This seems really simple and interesting. Not. So it's fine. I mean, I remember watching a documentary a couple of years ago, and you were talking about how the space travel and moving through space, and there was one theory that they were told by a particular ET was the reason why a spacecraft can move through space the way in which it does so quickly is because the way they equated it to was, think of a mattress. Okay, relax, guys. Think of a mattress. think of a pot on one end, and you pushing down the mattress your fist next to that pot. And if you do that, it goes down. So they said it's almost like that. So that pot's going to move down because you push down. So that's how they do it. It's almost like bending parts of space for something to move as opposed to propulsion. So, and I thought that was an interesting way of looking at what possible space travel could be like. So I thought, okay, and that's something I thought, make a mental note of that one. There you go, Qantas, or British Airways, when I need to get somewhere really quickly. It's like, did you know? But no, it was something really interesting. So again, like you said, it's is it the kind of people that are attracted to it that have a certain personality? Is it because of what they've experienced? And again, you cannot argue with someone's personal experience. So that again is a tricky subject in itself.
Very much so. And when I have spoken to people that have had experiences, I obviously don't go in there going, well, I don't believe you. I listen to their experience and let them just tell me their experience without embellishing it, or, I ask questions after they finish telling me their account, because it's interesting to me that they've had that experience. Not necessarily, did you make contact with the alien? It's more about the person and why, and helping them through that experience, because it can be same as a ghost experience. It can be quite unsettling and traumatic, can't it?
Absolutely, and probably more evasive as well, because it's we say, it's not the dead you need to worry about, it's the living. So, and I think that kind of, when it comes to someone having had an intrusive encounter like that, there was one person I interviewed in one case who had felt that they had been had little parts of their body taken from them, and had very strange surgical marks, and in certain places, and how evasive that must feel. Like, you don't have any recollection of it whatsoever, had no memory whatsoever. So you fall asleep, you wake up, you've got strange marks on you, not feeling great. And that must feel, I imagine, more violated, if that is something that is, for somebody to go through, than it would be from a possible incubus attack or poltergeist attack, say, for instance.
Yeah. I mean, I've had an experience, ghostly experience type thing, where afterwards I felt incredibly violated. And that took me ages to come to terms with, because it was something I couldn't explain. I can't explain it to this day. And that in itself it felt incredibly violated. So I totally understand how that feels for somebody, no matter what form that takes. It's a violation of yourself that you can't get your head around, because you couldn't see it, you couldn't control it, it was just one of those things I just still can't explain to this day. It happened a long time ago when I first started in the field. And I think, we talk about safety and protection when we go out spiritually, looking for ghosts and stuff, and it's a real thing.
And then again, what could you do as a protection against something that is potentially otherworldly? What would you do? Or you could sage all you like. It ain't gonna do anything.
No, it isn't.
And that's the thing. I think that would feel, for me, more intrusive than it would be for something potentially spirit orientated. So yeah, I take that off to anyone who feels they've gone through this experience and they're still traumatized by it, because it would be, you can't pin it down. You can't sit there and go, well, it was that person, that time, and then they get punished for it as such. It's nothing like that at all. It's something that's out of their control.
Yeah, and it comes out of the blue. You go to sleep at night, you feel like you get abducted, like you say, you wake up in the morning, you've got this, that's happened, that's completely out your control. So what do? Never sleep again?
Yeah,
that's not possible, is it?
No. Mind you, I'm sure young mothers and parents and themselves obviously feel like that anyway, but
yeah, that's very true. I felt like a horrible person for quite a few years after I had my children because of lack of sleep. I wasn't myself, is all I can say. Richard, what's your take on that?
Yeah, it's a difficult one, isn't it? I mean, I tend to sort of look at it, if these things are happening, they are happening for what reason? I don't know. I don't claim to know. I just sort of, if I'm fortunate enough to experience it, all well and good. I think the real sort of the trick of a good investigator would be to try and coax or try and sort of settle people who this experience has upset in some way. That is where I think investigators should look at. I mean, I myself have not experienced anything I've felt unsettled over. To be quite honest.
We go with yet on that one.
Yet.
Have you ever been unsettled to the point where it bothered you an awful lot, Beth?
Not myself personally, but having witnessed somebody going through something, I felt a bit jolted. I must admit, seeing their mood completely change. They've gone from being an observant investigator in a particular location. Gosh, we're talking probably about 8-9 years ago now, and their mood completely changed. And I had investigated with this person multiple times beforehand, and the mood changed. They got more aggressive, and I think it was the quick change, and then suddenly darting down a hallway with no lights at all, but knowing exactly where to go in which room. That was pitch black. And so it's almost like, night vision already. They just knew where they were going instantly without needing a torch. Like, to me, I'm terrible. I need a flashlight every 5 seconds. But this person just literally navigated through these dark hallways, and there are plenty of dark hallways in this particular location, and they just knew where to go. And it took 2 grown men to actually pull him back out. But he was actually shoulder charging. And one of them was a footy player. And he was having problems trying to, push him back out and get him out of the building, because we thought we need to get him out to find out what's going on, because you can't do it inside here. And as soon as he was out of the building, he was a completely different person. He sort of started blinking, looking around, and then one thing I've heard from mediums, which is quite common, he then went was sick afterwards. And some people said energy transfer. So I take, again, with everything, I take it with a grain of salt, but I've seen it happen a few times where people change very quickly, and then they change back to who they are, and it's so quick. I'm not sure if it's a shock to the system that their body's trying to deal with. Obviously, your body goes into shock from fear and fight and flight. It could be a little bit of that. I don't know. But then again, as I said, a lot of mediums said, like, it was so, from an energy perspective, if that's what was happening, it was so quick. He was actually unwell afterwards. But then again, he was fine. But I think that was seeing somebody go through something like that. It unnerved me, and it unnerved so much of us at that night that we actually packed up and left. So that is the only time it's ever happened. Now I look back, years stronger, and I would love to go back and explore that place again, and also explore with the same people and see if the same thing happens.
Yeah, but then you're asking someone to put themselves through something that may have felt very violent. It's very difficult, isn't it? It's one of those scenarios. I think I've had more experiences when I first started this weird and wonderful world than I do now. And then I wonder, is that because I've got more of a skeptical mind towards it? Do I know too much now?
That's not a bad thing. That's not a bad thing. It just means what your information you're gathering over the years is a lot more. It needs to be a lot of a higher grade, but in a sense, you're going to be a little more discerning of of all information. There's going to be a few things that you'll find out that is something. I actually think that might be worth exploring. So it may not necessarily be a bad thing. It's about growing.
Yeah, I'd agree with you there, Beth. I mean, it's not sort of, as you say, it's not a bad thing. A bit of discernment, and that comes over time. Sort of like, as long as it's based on your experiences. Yeah, I can't see a problem with that at all.
It is very strange. It is very strange how, when I look at my own personal journey through what I know and what I've learned, and some of the investigations I've done, and I find actual investigating quite boring now. Whereas I loved it. I love it. Do you know what I mean? It used to be like a height of excitement going out. We're going out again. Yeah, woohoo. Do you know what I mean? Whereas now I'm like, oh, it's going to be dark. It's going to be cold. Oh, my God. Do you know what I mean? It's like for nothing, because I'm going to be sitting in a dark room for God knows how many hours. What we're going to actually get out of this. So what keeps you going in all of this? Because it's a lot of time, money and effort on all and traveling and stuff, isn't it?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I think it's just the possibility. It's the possibility of something happening. I think that is always going to be there. And I know what you mean. There are times I go through phases, I think, for me. I think, if you're doing it a few times, like, yes, and then after a while, if you've had a couple of quiet times, which happens a lot, you kind of lose your spark a bit. And also, but if it's location investigating you're dealing with, if it's private residential investigating, then that's a whole other ball game. Yeah. And obviously, your reasons for doing that are very different. But obviously, from what you're talking about, it's going to like they're all ancient ramen and going going in, oh, what's going to happen tonight, sort of thing. I think, that I call it playground paranormal fun. Like, it's like literally like, oh, I've got a playground going on here. What's going to happen? And you get excited, but of course, as you can imagine, sometimes the most notably noted places, locations all around the world, can think, oh, we're most haunted, and you go there and like nothing happens, and it can happen, and that's the way it is. And sometimes a location has this reputation of being haunted, but nothing happens. But for me, I think it does go in phases. There'll be a couple of months, or even up to like 6 months. I'll be like, oh, I'm so excited. It doesn't matter what location I go to. I don't care if nothing happens. I just want to get out, and particularly with COVID, I think I appreciate that 10 times more now than ever.
Yeah, that's true.
It's literally like, just stick me in a dark room. I don't care if it's someone's office basement. I don't care. Like, if there's something happening, I'll find it. You know what I mean? Like, but it's the difference between that, and again, like you said, sometimes there can be phases where you're like, what? Nothing's going to happen. What am I doing here? Some people may try different methods. You look at them like, why are you trying that method? That's so old fashioned. And why are you trying to do that? Like, nothing happens when you use it. I tried that, and I don't even like, and you start to become a little bit more critical sometimes. So I think it really just, to me, it comes and goes in phases and stuff like that. But I think it's the excitement, it's the wonder of what might happen. I think that's what draws me still, always. And I like having the breakup of having a location that's actually meant to be haunted, and to go there for fun. I'm not, because there is a lot of pressure when you're doing private and residential cases in a good and healthy way, and you have to know how to handle that as well, because it's other people's fear you're dealing with. But sometimes it's nice to enjoy it. Sometimes it's good to try. No, there's a flashing gadget. It's probably a load of crap, but I'm going to give it a go anyway. You know what I mean? Why not?
Let's get those flashing gadgets out.
Exactly. It's got to look like a disco ball. Yeah, why not?
Flashing cat balls out, because spirits love to play with them, right?
Yeah, apparently they're all the rage in the spirit world. They're all like, it's like glow sticks. You know what I mean? But it's literally. Give it a shot, give it a go. Like, I'm not doing scientific research papers on a cat ball. I'm actually going out and just having a bit of fun. You know what I mean? Because it's enjoyable. Like, let's see what happens. What one? I might learn something. Woo! So.
I love that. Yeah, let's have a go. Woo-hoo.
Yes, do it. Yeah.
Nothing like a pair of cat balls.
Kind of paranormal investigating we all love to do. What for me, it's the location. I'm so location driven on what I pick to do. That's the pull for me. If it's a location that like looks good, as in like it's got a vibe to it, I love it. Whereas I look at some, and there are some of the big ones on the market, on the circuit, that I just won't touch, because I'm like, it's Northwest, been there, seen it, done it, without even actually having to go there, because so many people have done it. But it's the ones that, I don't know, they've just got something about them, something a bit different about them.
And it's almost like they're kind of known, semi-known, or maybe someone says, hey, we've got a lead, and they're looking to see if anyone can find anything else, and it's not like a proper private residential case kind of going on. It's actually like this is a business, but they've got some funny things going on, and they want someone to come in and check it out. It's like, oh, okay, yeah. They're the good ones.
Yeah, we used to do a dance studio. It wasn't an investigation situation, but they always have funny things going on. And so during the day, it was like dance school with all these lovely little girls in ballerina dresses and tap shoes. And then at night, we would go in there with our SWAT teamed up, and go in there. And we had some really interesting experiences there. It was great. But then it changed hands, and the person who took it over wasn't interested in that side of things, just wanted to run it as a dance school, which is fair enough. Do you know what I mean? That's what you that's part and parcel of it, unfortunately. Locations seem to come and go at times. And it had a ducking pool in the courtyard at the back.
Wow.
It used to be a ducking pool. Brilliant place.
Wow. Yeah, it's like that. That's good. And that's like you say, that's what happens with a lot of venues. Like sometimes you can have that lead to get into a place, and they want to figure out what's going on, so you can gather bits of information about that location and see if it correlates with people's stories. It's not like a full private residential case. It's more of a it's like not fun on the side, but it's a business just wanting to know, is there something there? And we don't it's not a serious thing. It's not like people are scared or frightened. They're just thinking, we might have something here. Like, we want to come along do some investigations over time and see what you can find. We're like, okay, well, this is great. They're awesome. But like you say, it literally is down to the owners. And there was a fabulous location somewhere in Sydney, Western Sydney. Of course, I can't say the name of it. And they had opened up, and it was a very well-known location. And they said, we've got things happening all the time. I thought, this is brilliant. It was a theatre. I'm like, oh, even better from a sound perspective. High five. Like oh, this is awesome. And then, of course, it changed hands. Of course, that's what happens after a while. They weren't getting enough revenue. And then, of course, it goes under new management. And new management can go, sorry, not happening. We won't let you in. And like you said, you literally are, again, understandably at the mercy of managers in this particular situation. So sometimes, you can have a great location and be learning from it and getting something from it and having different phenomena. But then, boom, just like that, it can be taken away.
Yeah. And it's a shame. But, if they've not got anything that's disrupting their business. But then the other argument would be they've only got you in because they want a bit of extra revenue, because if it was going that badly, they're getting a couple of £100 for a group of people to go in and wander around the building, basically. So, there is that argument. Are they just saying, oh, yeah, come and investigate because we've got weird happenings, or what you've got going on? Oh, a few things moving, getting strange sounds, But the kids are fine. They're all happy. None of the kids are being upset, or whatever the situation is on that building. You could look at it both ways. But we had some great times there, and we had some great, just odd things happen. And we was able to debunk stuff as well. Like a particular hallway that felt weird to everybody was right backed onto one of the walls of the hallway, the electricity room. And the electricity room had the what do you call them? The boards.
Yeah.
Like with all the flick switches for about
circuit board.
Yeah,
circuit boards. Like literally the whole row all culminated in this one room that backed onto this particular hallway.
Yeah.
So the EMF was absolutely off the scale on that particular hallway. So he was able to say, yeah, well, that's why, because, high levels of EMF can make you feel like you're being watched and feel like you're being followed and have an oppressive feeling sometimes. And that's probably what that is. So, we did do some good.
No, that's good. And I've known of people that have been in a situation where they've gone to a location, they've gathered information and given it back to the owner and said, look, this is what we found. This is the interesting experiences that correlate with what you've experienced with you and your staff. And then to find 6 months later, guess what? This organisation, this company are running their own ghost tours. You find out, and all the information that you've spent, up to almost sometimes a year of some groups have given to this location, have given to them, and now actually using it to make money from ghost tours from their own staff. So and I've seen that happen a few times too, and you can kind of understand, but at the same time it is a bit of a slap in the face. So
it's very annoying, isn't it, when that happens? Very much so. Now, on the private side of things, do we feel that a lot of people talk about private cases coming into them a lot? Now, I've been in this field like 10 years plus now, and I think I've had 3. And I'm quite out there as a person that deals with paranormal. Do you know what I mean? Doing the podcast and all the other things that I've done over the years. So I would say no, not particularly. And any team that is saying that they've got 4 or 5 a week coming into them, I kind of feel it's a bit of BS.
I see your BS and I smell it.
Yes. Yeah, that's how I feel about that. Yeah. Really, because, and Cal was saying at one point, the SPR, because a lot of those kind of cases used to go through the SPR, and they still get cases. Brilliant. That's exactly who should be dealing with it. You know what I mean? Quite frankly, in my opinion, because little old me could be walking into God knows what and not know what to deal with or how to deal with it. And we're not talking about ghosts on this one. We're talking about humans. You know what I mean? There's all sorts of scenarios and nasty people out there and various horrible situations that go on in people's homes. And it's not something I particularly would like to get involved in regards to, alcohol and drug abuse and all sorts of scenarios that are out there. So do we think then that the private case scenario is an overblown, ego-boosting paranormal community badge of honour?
I think you've just put it in a nutshell. Yeah, it can
Yeah.
be. Absolutely. 100%. I think it can be used as a way. And like you say, I've known of groups saying, oh, we've got 30 cases on the go, running at the moment. I'm thinking if you're actually actively investigating each of those 30 cases, like properly, in a methodical way. It's not something you go in someone's house for like about 4 hours and then come back and go, oh, I don't think it's haunted. Then I don't believe you. Like literally,
Yeah.
it is, and like with you, it's probably, I will say, it's probably one of my pet hates when I see groups going, oh, we, like you said, we've got 5 cases that came in this week. We're working on them all. No. You don't have a good vetting system in place for starters. I can get 5 case inquiries in a week, no problem. I can get 10, 15 often, but I'm not taking any of them on because I have a very strict vetting system in place. And because most of the time, with all respect and heart out to most people, most of the time it's not a haunting issue that's happening. They just need to tell their story. There's something else going on. Maybe they just want attention. It could be all for all different reasons. But 99.99% of the time when a case inquiry comes in, it's just literally a query. And again, if you've got a really good vetting system, you can give some advice as far as saying, if you're having health issues, go and see a GP. If you've got these particular issues in your home, go and get somebody who's a certified electrician or plumber or your council person to do a noise check, all sorts of different things. Those are the suggestions. I wouldn't say advice. Advice is probably not the best word, but even suggestions to people. But like we say, it's like a lot of them just think, I'm getting case inquiries. That's great, but what are you doing about it? Actually helping people? Or are we just kind of going, I got an email from someone. We can all get emails, mate. It's caught in the 21st century.
Yeah.
What are you doing about it? So it is one of my pet hates, seeing the people promoting the fact how many cases they get means diddly squat. It's like with you, I've dealt with probably about 8 cases over the years, and some people think, oh, you've been doing this for 12 years, you should no, trust me, 8 cases is a lot of cases, but I've worked with a team of people on it. It's not just been me. So that's the reason why we were able to work on it. But any more than that, if you're dealing with more than 2 cases a year, I think that is too much for me personally. If you're doing it properly, what do you reckon, Richard?
Yeah, it's a case. I mean, and we've spoken to it before. I mean, do the people expect Most Haunted to be played out in their living rooms? I mean, there's all sorts of reasons people would actually ask, and plus, nobody's ever approached me and asked about. I mean, I just feel that yeah, it's just there. Nobody's ever approached me and asked, so I can't really sort of comment much and much more on it.
I think the first port of call is, I've been approached by quite a few people. Is the ones I've been actively involved in have been 3. But the first thing I say, I need a diary. I need a diary of what's happening. I need 2 weeks at least of what you think is happening around you, times, dates, all in that. I want a 2-week diary. And I would say 100% of the time, they haven't come back with that.
Yeah.
No, it's the basic stuff, isn't it?
It's the basic. If that was really worrying you and something was really weird going on in your home, that would be I would be writing that. If that was me in my house, I would be writing that down and recording it. That's the first thing. You start recording it. And that's a basic, guys. If you've got a health problem and it's an ongoing health problem, one of the things the doctor will say to you is, like if it's food related, we need a food diary. What are you eating? Let's see how you feel after, if you have a heavy carb day, are you getting diarrhea the day after? It could be gluten intolerance. It could be this, it could be that. And they'll ask you to diarise it.
Yeah.
Symptoms and, what you're eating and how you react to certain medicines and actually record it so they can actually see how it's playing out in front of them. That would be on a health level. It's exactly the same as what you would do in a paranormal case, is get them to document it. You've got it in their own words, their own experiences, their own mini witness statements, as it were, going on. You can find out if there's patterns. I know somebody who had a case, this was in America, Jay had this one. And the woman would go to bed, and every night she'd get woken up by the bed shaking really badly, and she thought that it was a ghost shaking the bed. Right, and it used to freak her right out. And he got her to write this diary, and it turned out to be roughly around the same time every night. And so he was like, right, okay. So she went and stayed elsewhere. They stayed in the place, and they had a railway line. And it was at that time every night that a heavy freight train went past. And during the day, it weren't freight trains. It was normal trains, didn't affect the building at all. But the freight train was obviously a lot bigger, a lot heavier, a lot longer, and was enough to make her bed shake. And that's what always waking her up. And it was just getting to the rational explanation. And she was like, oh, for goodness sakes, I feel so stupid. He was like, not at all. Don't ever feel stupid, because I'm glad we've helped you. I'm glad we've resolved this for you. Do you know what I mean? But it was just looking at the patterns and then finding the evidence to back up that, which was the freight train. Normal, everyday, not a ghost at all. No cat balls involved in that location. But it was like, and how many times do people say, you're going to think I'm crazy?
Oh, my word. We could retire tomorrow.
Yeah, you're going to think I'm crazy, and you go, don't worry, just tell me. Just tell me what your story is.
Exactly.
And they tell you, and it's brilliant.
Yeah.
And you're sitting there thinking, if I tell you what I think, you're going to think I'm crazy.
Exactly. So true.
I lived in a house backing onto a railway line, and you are right, they do use, and this was in Australia, funny enough.
Ooh, okay.
And they do have the freight trains going late at night. Plus, it was on a bend just at the back of the house, so you'll get the wheels screaming as well as it slowly went round.
Oh.
But I didn't put it down to anything paranormal.
No, yeah, and that's it. It's like you said. It's to me, it's always a difference. Not a difference, but it's for learning that I've done for myself and information I've provided for other investigators. It's I mentioned this before, and so apologies if anyone else has heard of this as well. But I call it an inside job or an outside job. So if something's happened to somebody, it's either something from a psychological perspective, inside job, or it's outside job, it's an environmental perspective. And I just categorize it from there, and I just break it down from that. So it's an inside job and an outside job. So obviously what's happening is an outside job. So it's trains going out, it's people, and often, in your question, you'll ask, if there are other people witnessing the same phenomena. If they are, then it's more than likely an outside job. If it's not, then it's more like an inside job. So it's going to be psychological, more likely. Again, there's so many different factors. And that's what you as you would know, you'll sometimes get an email because I'm getting rattling in my windows at 3:30 p.m. And 3:30 a.m. every day, and I've got a sore knee. What do you think it is? And like, whoa, okay, wow, okay. There's about 50 different reasons why these different type of things that you're experiencing could actually be happening, and I can't just do it over an email. So it's like you wouldn't go to a doctor and just email going, hey, look, I've got a headache. What's going on? It's like, well, how many times have you had a headache? What's been going on? How's like you were saying before, it's breaking down, it's finding patterns. And sometimes I think when we initially get emails and requests from people, if you're dealing with private and residential cases, it's like, it's like, oh, but I've got this phenomenon, can you tell me what's happening? It's like, oh, geez, there are so many, there could be 50 different explanations just from one thing you're experiencing. So it's trying to educate people a little bit in the sense like, okay, this is going to not just be a simple yes no answer here. I can't say, you can Google all you like saying, is my house haunted? And they go, well, no, if you've got creaks and bangs and you're feeling the presence, your house is haunted. I'm like, oh, thanks, Google. This is really not helping right now.
Yeah. I have this in the crystal where they go, oh, I've got this. What crystal would be good for it? And you go, well, it's not as simple as that.
Yes.
It's not as simple as that. There's not one crystal that's going to magically do all that. It could be a combination. It could be something not crystally. It could be, you know what I mean? It's like a million questions off of the back of one thing you've brought to the table. And people get very frustrated with that. But they've got to understand it's not a one size fits all.
Yes, exactly. And it's intent as well. It's the person's intent. Do they want answers, or do they just want attention. And it sounds really awful to say, but we do know there are, unfortunately, there are people out there that will feel like they want some attention because they want to feel special. There's all different reasons why. There's something else going on in the family or the household that may not be quite so healthy, and having intervention of some sort is something. They could be fans of those shows, or we've been there, done that, bought the T-shirt and then some. So it's obviously finding out intention. And often I'll ask, in the beginning, right from the beginning, what do you want from this? And like you say, with Kerry, when you dealt with that case, it's like she may have felt stupid, but it's like at the end of the day, she was glad to have a result that actually, that said it wasn't haunted. So I'm like, if this is not haunted, are you going to be okay with that? Or if this is not something that's possibly paranormal, what are your thoughts on that? And if there's a pullback from that, or there's a bit of resistance, then that's something I wouldn't take on personally myself.
Exactly. I've actually come to the end of the first half, guys.
Oh, wow. Guys, when you're having
Well,
really quick.
We're all dumbstruck.
On that note, we are going to take a quick break, and we will be continuing this fascinating discussion right after this.
Hello, Harry Price here. If there's nothing me and my friends enjoy more here on the other side, it is to sit back and relax and listen to the Paranormal Concept Show, right here on the PAUK Radio Network. Broadcasting a plethora of interesting and informative content for all your paranormal needs. Find them across social media to keep up to date with forthcoming shows and all their other adventures. Hello, is there anybody there?
And welcome back to the Paranormal Concept Show, exclusive to the Paranormal UK Radio Network. And I'm joined in the studio by the lovely Richard and the amazing Beth Darlington. Welcome back. Second half of the show.
Thank you, lovely people. Thank you.
First half went really quick, so let's see what happens in the second half. So we talk about influences through our journey, who's influenced us and books we've read and stuff like that. I hold my hands up. I am a huge Colin Wilson fan in this whole world, and I refer to his books, and he has led me down so many interesting little, like, he gives you a good overview of something, and then it gives you sort of like fodder to go off and find more for yourself. And that's what I like about Colin Wilson in his books. What about you guys? What's been a big influence for you two? Beth?
For me, it would have to be Dr. Kieran O'Keefe. I know it's a bit nerdy.
Okay, interesting one.
Yeah, I would say would he be a huge influence in the angle I take with certain views with work. I've obviously done a couple of his courses. I met him 14 years ago when I was here before living here. And I'll be actually seeing him on stage in a couple of weeks on Halloween night, which would be great for the Battersea Poltergeist thing happening in London, which would be awesome. So looking forward to that. And I've got, Poltergeist, Kieran O'Keefe. It's like, that's my Halloween. Ding. Tick, tick, tick. People say, what's your bucket lists in life? Or wandering through the flowers, or walking through the Swiss Alps. Like, no, this is my one. So, but yeah, and again, like with you, it comes down to the way in which he presents information, the angle he takes, the research he has, the backing he has, the personability of who he is. Yet at the same time, he's quite a private person too. So, and again, he's a very busy man. He's got his lovely family, and he does all the stuff with the university. He works in the stuff as well. So I've been watching and seeing his work for years, and I've always looked up to the angle that he takes with a lot of things. And it's not. It's like a polite skepticism, I guess you could say, is the best way to say it. And I think it's a really, really healthy way to look at the stuff when it comes to possible paranormal phenomena anyway. So, yeah, I have to say, when it comes to people you're kind of looking up to, I think he's my dude.
Oh, he's the one. I think with me, it's I go back to my old reading days, and this is sort of pre-internet and pre-everything. I think is Peter Underwood and Arthur C. Clarke.
Nice.
It's their books are quite sort of standard sort of ghost sort of like books, but they never pertain to actually give you answers. You know, they always left you more with a sense of mystery, which is something that sits with me okay, to be quite honest. I don't sort of read a book to get answers, and especially in this field, they're sort of, they can just drift. But I like the books that sort of like can leave you with a sense of mystery, and particularly Peter Underwood's work. I think I've read most of his books now. I mean, there's not many I haven't read, and I do thoroughly enjoy them.
Nice.
We've got a really good friend of ours that has his archives, don't we, Richard?
Yes, that's right.
That'd be you'd be all over that like a rash, I would imagine.
Honestly, we're well overdue a visit, but COVID interfered. We got one planned, and then to go and visit him, Eddie Brazil, this is, to go and visit him, and then COVID hit, and we was like, bugger! Yeah, we must go and sort that out.
Yeah, we will. Yeah, we must.
We haven't caught up with him yet since we got lifted, but people are still a little wary, and I understand that. Still a little bit. Don't want to extend our circles too far. I think there's still a little bit of that going on out there, but it will happen. It will happen as time goes on. People get more relaxed about it, don't they? And that's starting to happen. People are venturing a bit further afield now. But these influences that we have going through, and I have to say, they come from all manner of places, like TV shows, possibly, that you'll find someone that pops up and you think, oh, they're interesting. I'll go look at them. I've not really, I know Kieran O'Keefe from Most Haunted. That's it.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's how I originally found him out myself. I think, he seems, very level-headed, very polite speaking, and then I actually started to look into more of the work that he did, and I thought, actually, there's a bit more to this, and read more, and then obviously went to a couple of his events years ago and found him personable, and like I said, what's it like being in the field of science, of psychology, and then having this branch off of parapsychology? How is that like? He's, all my science friends at the time, were kind of sort of jovially sort of laughed at me a bit, going, oh yeah, it's not a serious science, like good luck with that kind of stuff, so he knows what it's like to be interested in a topic that his main field of science, which is what he studies under, is generally the people around it would not look upon it the same way he does. So I thought, that was kind of brave, and so that's the first kind of thought, that's intriguing, that's cool. So yeah, it's these people are as you said, like the people that we've all spoken about just now, is they kind of take you down that rabbit warren, but in a really nice way, in a way that you can understand, a way that intrigues you enough to make you want to learn more. I think that's the best thing about these kinds of people, that can be like that. But like you said, it's generally, originally I would not have known of him. I would not have any of his work at all if it wasn't for that particular show.
Yeah, I should look into him a bit more, really, rather than be dismissive. I hold my hands up. I can be quite dismissive of people. That's a fault in me.
Right, we'll have to get him on the show then, Karen.
You should.
Yeah, maybe we should. Would he talk to me though?
Of course he would.
But the TV show thing. Let's talk about that. Most Haunted. First off, for me, that's where I started. Tried the Ghost Adventures. Kind of thought, hashtag it's a demon. Got fed up with that quite quickly. Although I did like his documentary on the Demon House.
Oh,
I liked it. No, I liked it. I'm not saying it was a serious investigation. I quite liked it as entertainment value.
Yeah.
But other than that, I don't follow any of the other shows. I probably caught like one episode of other shows. I love when we've got scientific people like, Kieran O'Keefe and Cal Cooper and Chris French and, all the other names, the scientific names coming into those programs. They bring a little bit of sense to the program, right?
Absolutely, and that's probably where that's where I started to actually figure out more about Chris French himself. Again, I'm a big fan of his work as well, and again, it was from finding a particular show on YouTube, and like, oh, it's a pretty show. Was there something about it haunted? Oh, there's this guy with this looking sort of like looks like one of the Wombles with the glasses sort of thing. Oh, okay, right. was going on here? So, and again, I'm like, I looked him up. I'm like, oh, I like his angle, although he's, can be quite down the middle of it. It's like, oh, that's actually, he makes a bit of sense there. Like you said, it's that balancing, and that's why I love and I encourage it as much as I can with investigating and obviously with paranormal phenomena to embrace skepticism. We should. Actual good, healthy skepticism is really important. And I think that's what balances us out. That's kind of, it's not like a stick poking a bear thing going on. It's actually the fact of, they're there to kind of level it out, kind of go, actually, you know what, have you thought of this? Or this may not work. Have you looked at this angle? This could actually be explained this way. It's something we need. It's going to give the paranormal field more credibility if we embrace healthy skepticism. Because, again, depending on level of the paranormal investigating you're looking at doing. Of course, as we know, there's different parts to it. It's like good old fun ghost hunting. Or, skeptics can go along and have a laugh as well, because more than likely they'll just have a bit of a joke and, well, there's a ghost. Oh, no, there's not. Or, at the same time, having a healthy skeptic view, obviously, when you're looking at a particular, say, private or residential case, like just embracing skepticism, I think is so important. And I think that's one thing that's, again, I think that's another bridge that should be crossed when it comes to investigating, not just from bringing academics in, but actually good, healthy skepticism in there as well.
I totally agree with that. And I think blind faith can only carry you so far in anything. You, at some point, you have to broaden that perspective. And at one point, that put me into conflict with my spiritual work. And I found the more I read, the more I researched, and more I read, the Guy Leon Playfairs and, some of the great names in the field, that actually they haven't got the answers either. They can put it in scientific ways. They can try and test it in scientific ways, and it won't hold up. But they still can't explain some of the experiences people have had or things that have happened that are documented. You know what I mean? And I thought, so at one point it put me in a real conflicted state. So I stepped away from my spiritual work quite a lot and kind of really sort of like went down that route. And then it brought me back, actually. It actually brought me in full circle. And now I feel like I'm a lot more balanced in my approach to how I approach not just the paranormal side of things, but the spiritual side of things when I'm dealing on a spiritual front too. It brings that a new level to it, which brings it actually more credibility, because you're not sitting there going, oh yes, well, it's the power of the crystals and it's spirit talking to me and stuff like that. You can say that's just one explanation. There are other forms, you can look at this in several different ways. And I love, that's what I like to bring to the table, is that and that to me brings more credibility of knowledge than it does blind faith. Believe what I say because I talk to spirits, basically. And that for me has been one of the biggest eye openers of my journey, was that full circle. And I'm still going through it. It's still like an ever evolving circle, quite frankly, because I will go round and round and up and down and around about through various things. And how it ties together and the crossovers in this field is something that's completely never ceases to surprise me. And that's the thing, isn't it? It's the crossover points all the time in this field that we see. I mean, we talked about the ufology world, but there's crossovers into the paranormal field with that. You've only got to look at the Mothman prophecies for that one. You know what I mean?
There's definitely something paranormal going on there.
Yeah. And then the Skimwalker Ranch as well. They're looking at that in a new series, very scientifically, doing experiments, trying to, find explanations, looking at it from a what's his job title, is a physicist or astrophysicist, isn't he, Travis? Looking at it in that way, but then bringing spiritual aspects in and getting like weird anomalous phenomena off the back of that. And I find that whole thing quite fascinating, that crossover. What kind of cases can you think of, or instances can you think of that crossover, that conflict that brought it back together again? That's quite a big question. Sorry.
It is, right? and it's a fabulous one, of course. I think for me, it was when I've been what they call squatching. I know it sounds like something you do to vegetables, but it's actually Sasquatch, which is the Northern American term for Bigfoot. So obviously, in Australia, we actually grab a lot of terms from the US And so squatching is one of those terms that we use. And so obviously it's going out and looking for the possibility of what we have in Australia called the Yowie, which is the Australian version of Bigfoot. And that, to me, it was a deviation of, instead of just always looking at haunting cases, it was, for the first time for me, was investigating a particular type of phenomena where something's considered alive, as opposed to something that's considered dead. So then the dynamics change completely, because if anything, if this particular creature exists, you're in its environment. It has completely overtaken you in its adaptability already. So you're in its environment looking for it when it does not want to be found. But at the same time, it could, from what I've been told and from legends and in beautiful Indigenous Australians that have spoken about for many years, it could rip my head off. So it's like,
sounds like a good good Australian kind of animal. I think they all want to kill you out there, don't they? The animals out there.
Pick your poison, love. Pick your poison. So, yeah, it's like you're in its environment, and so that what is not say the hunter becomes the hunted, because you don't want to hunt this particular entity of some sort, but you're looking for it. But at the same time, they are far more advanced in their environment for let's say hundreds and thousands of years. If they actually exist, and there's been so many tales of people, even in recent years, that have had this. So to me, as you mentioned, like that kind of deviated around where it's like, now my investigating has changed completely. I'm not dealing with just witness reports with something that's considered dead. I'm dealing with witness reports about something that's considered alive, and I'm in its environment, and I'm practically meat. So it's like, and they say, even when we're walking in groups, to make sure that the women are in the middle of the group when we're walking through the bush in a line, because they can be quite more, how can I say, I'm not saying frisky as such, is that probably the wrong word to say, but they're a lot more drawn, I guess you could say, to women. And if you happen to be at the end, apparently that's not a good sign as well. So, and also apparently if women are going through a particular time in their cycle, apparently that also drives them crazy as well. So you never know. So it's a very interesting thing, but it took me a whole circle around again. So I went from doing haunting cases all the time and talking to people who've had UFO experiences, and then there's this whole other avenue of cryptozoology. It's like, wow, this is a whole other thing that I actually can get to experience and go and check out myself and have a look at and learn from. And then it came, and again, like with you, it came full circle. I was like, this is actually this whole, we think of paranormal generally as ghosts and hauntings, but as we both, and all of us know, and particularly with your show as well, in this podcast, there's a whole gamut of stuff going on that is not just on hauntings. And when you, like, again, rabbit warren, you start to go down there, it just becomes fascinating.
I think with like the Yowie cross Bigfoot and stuff, and that's what interests me, is we have got something which should be real, like flesh and blood, but it's not behaving as if it's sort of real, but again, it is leaving behind actual physical traces, like some aspects of ufology. When they sort of allegedly land, they can actually leave behind a physical trace. So it's this sort of area of sort of what is sort of termed as high strangeness, which is which I think is a brilliant term, because that does encompass a lot of what we deal with here in the paranormal field.
Absolutely. And you're right in the sense where it's not like your UFOs and aliens and ETs would leave traces of something deliberately behind, or okay, so Roswell, okay, so we'll take that out of the picture, but in the sense of that there are, and of course then you'll hear from people who are very obviously very skeptical, say, well, we've never seen a dead Yowie and or a dead Bigfoot, and if we had, where do they go? Like, they've obviously got, if they live they die, where'd they go? Where's, I've never seen a dead one, I've never seen poop from it. Yeah. Like, it's got to come from somewhere. Like if it's eating, something's got to come out of it. So again, there's lots of people that will obviously question that as well, and rightfully so. But then, of course, there are hair samples that people have had that have been DNA tested that haven't been matched, and sounds that people have had, people that have been studying apes for centuries, and all this kind of stuff, and then study of that, and they've turned around and said, I've not heard this particular sound. So there is something out there. We just, again, like, just like with the universe, our world, we haven't been to every corner of it, let alone don't even get me started on the oceans.
Right?
We're leaving the oceans out of it for you.
So we can't sit there and we say we know everything, and that's why I think it's so fascinating about the paranormal. We don't know everything, so.
Very true, very, very true. And you're right. It's that, isn't it? We've got something possibly tangible with cryptozoology, but still, it's so rare. But we are still discovering species. There
Absolutely.
are species that are still being
Oh,
discovered.
yeah.
Like, all of a sudden, it was like, oh, new species found. And then I remember watching, it was to do with the missing 411, and they would talk about these hunters that would go to this, like, really remote camp, and they recorded these sounds. And I have to say that just on the recording, sent chills up my spine. I would have crapped myself if I'd been in the woods and actually was hearing that. I would have crapped myself. I'm not going to lie.
Oh, it's fascinating though. Oh, Kerry, you have no idea how fascinating it is when you're in this environment, and then it's like, you're walking along and you're down a path and you're in flat bushland, and rocks come flying at your feet, and someone's either have night vision goggles on, or there's some really weird stuff happening. So, yeah, it's fascinating stuff.
I'm not really a kind of girl. Well, you know me. I don't go out very often. I'm a kind of stay-at-home girl, let alone walk around in the bush in the middle of the night. And there's spiders and scorpions and God knows what in your world. No, you won't catch me in Australia, folks. If I barely go out of my little corner of the world.
Oh, it's not that bad, Gary. It's not that bad.
It's a big scary word out there, Richard. You know this.
Oh, I learned it. It's like, honestly, at the end of the day, I always laugh. I'm like, well, I made it to my 40s, so it can't be that bad.
This is true. There's a lot of people that live in Australia, and they're absolutely fine. Hello to our Australian listeners, by the way. I have every admiration for your daily trials and tribulations with the fauna and flora out there. Now, one thing that came out through lockdown actually was there was more reports of people saying they had weird stuff happening in their homes, right?
I've heard of this.
Oh, I've heard of this one too.
Yeah, I heard this. I personally think it was just you're more aware of your surroundings because you're in it all the time. That's kind of what I was thinking.
I'm down that same line as well. I think it was just people being more at home and being more observant of their surroundings. And I think they call it when you move, it's called new house syndrome.
Yeah.
So obviously, you move to a new house and suddenly think, oh God, I haven't heard this, I haven't heard that. What's going on here? And that's because you're just not used to the sounds around you. Technically, half the time I'm in London, half the time I'm in Kent, and I sometimes wake up and go, where am I? It's not your house, it's a house syndrome. So, but yeah, it's I agree with you as well, Kerry. I think it's very much about people just being more observant at home as well, and more than ever. Like we've never, now in 100 at least, from our generation, if anything, we've never been forcibly at home. We've never, it's almost like detention for someone else doing something wrong. So we kind of, someone's stuffed up somewhere in the world. We're all going to figure that out at some point, but we'll all have to stay at home anyway because if someone's been bad, and so everyone's stuck at home, and then it's getting used to the sounds and particularly sounds more than anything, but also sightings. I got a lot of emails about people saying, I'm seeing something in the corner of my eye. I'm like, has it happened before? No, it's never happened before until now. I'm like, again, like with you, make a diary, So yeah, I agree. I think more than likely would have been the fact that people don't usually spend this much time at home.
Yeah.
And I think people are underestimating the level. It didn't feel traumatic because you're told to stay at home. Great. Netflix and chill every day. Go out once a week. Fantastic. We've all prayed for that at times in our life. And this time I was actually able to do it. And I think on one level, it was great. First lockdown was brilliant, right? Beautiful sunshine, could get out, all the rest of it. But then all of a sudden, it's a totally different ball game, and it did bring in a level of trauma, which I think a lot of people underestimated, the underlying trauma of the situation we've all gone through. And I think that, coupled with the home syndrome, do you know what I mean? Because that's what kind of caused this. It's almost like something weird's going on. Yeah, there's a big worldwide weird situation going on, everybody, right? And you're told to stay at home in a place that you don't really normally spend that much time in. Not really. You spend more time at work than you do at home generally, and that dynamic changed completely. And I think it was this underlying trauma going on, and then the new home syndrome, as you called it, going on, which made people think that there was something weird going on in their home. And in actual fact, it was just the whole weirdness of the situation, and they were externalizing it.
Yeah. And of course, there'd be other people in the paranormal field that would often say, well, maybe the reason why people are experiencing all this is because there's a lot more death happening at the moment. And I've heard that being thrown out, and I'm like, got to tread carefully there.
Yeah.
Really carefully there, because with all respect, in the 2,000 odd years of written history in this country, there's kind of been a lot of death and plagues anyway, and so it's kind of like. So you got to be. It's like yeah. In Australia, we go no. So that's
No.
I love that. I mean, but it is well documented that in times of great trauma and death that goes around, that there does tend to be more of a spiritual awakening, they call it. A spiritual awakening. We saw it, we've seen it through various world wars. There's a massive reawakening of people going to spiritualism and holding seances and wanting to hear from loved ones that had obviously were fighting in the trenches or in World War II or whatever. Each time something like this happens, we do see a resurgence in this field, the spiritual field, I should say, because people are searching for answers and trying to regain some control in whatever way they can, right?
Yeah, of course, and also explaining it as well. Like, the big reason why spiritualism started up. One of the huge reasons was because of the Civil War in America and people wanting answers when loved ones had disappeared, and whether or not they're actually going to come back and then be able to contact them from the other side. I can completely understand why people then revert back a little bit with this, and it's okay. So obviously technology is far more advanced, and we know if someone has actually passed and what they passed of, but the grieving doesn't stop. The wanting to contact a loved one doesn't stop, and looking for signs of that loved one wanting to contact you also doesn't stop.
Very much so. And this is why we had a huge resurgence, or a huge surgence, should I say, not resurgence, it was just a huge surge of new conspiracy theory.
Yeah.
Yep.
Did we all get a little bit sick of our social feeds through lockdowns?
Oh, my word. That I did. There were a few people I actually ended up having to unfriend because some of it was just a little bit too, like, I'm open-minded, but not so open-minded. My brain falls out, that kind of thing. So I'm like, it's like brain is intact, skull is intact, all is well in the world. So yeah, each their own. Everyone's got different ideas, but yeah, I don't have microchips. I'm not going to be sort of scanned by Bill Gates or anything like that. All that stuff that was going on, it was just each their own, just not my bag.
Yeah, same here, really. We came to that conclusion, didn't we, Richard, quite a long time ago now. But we've been open since April, and the socials have settled down, thank the Lord. And we've got back to good old ghost hunter group bashing each other.
Oh yes, that's revived.
Love that. The old paranormal drama is going full feckle at the moment, isn't it?
It's
in overdrive, I think.
It's making up for lost time now, people.
It certainly is. Now, I'm going to hold my hands up here. I don't watch the TV programs. I've said that earlier in the show. But I do like to watch a live stream quite happily, in the same way I would a television program.
Right.
Yep.
So I don't take it seriously. I don't sit there and think, oh yeah, they're going to claim, they caught whatever on camera. And this goes for some of the well-known that are doing it as much as the notorious clickbait groups. But I would quite happily sit there and watch it. And I certainly won't troll it. I will watch it as an observer and enjoy it for what it is.
Yeah.
Right? I don't like the groups that are more or like to be more controversial and disrespectful to locations. But if they're going in and they're just doing a ghost hunt, live streaming it, fantastic, great. Don't even mind the titles per se these days. I've got over that one. And it's they're after followers, and some of those live streams are absolutely huge forces now, and to overtake TV program watching figures exponentially. The live stream seems to be the way to go. I quite like doing a quick live stream, but I don't like to do the investigation side of live stream. That's my perspective. That's how I like to work when we go out, Rich. That's what we do, isn't it? This is where we are. This is what we're doing. See you later. Have fun, everybody. Kind of just keep you up to stream. What's your guilty pleasure? Mine goes to Britain, by the way, everybody. I'm going to put that out there. That's my guilty pleasure.
I gravitate towards whatever's actually kind of live. Normally I go on Live Paranormal, so they've got a couple of different shows and different things going on. I watch Adelaide's Haunted Horizons with their live feeds. Great show, and they do lots of live investigations in Adelaide in Australia. Oh my gosh, there's ones by Anne and Renata. Also in Australia as well, they have little investigations here and there, and you get to see a bit as well. And they've also got a great little show going on as well. And they do little live tarot things if you want to have a bit of fun too. So I guess, yeah, I'm probably more Australian. Sort of my guilty pleasure. I go in there and have a look. And of course, obviously, sometimes when these shows are running live, it's often when we're asleep here. So, again, I get to actually watch it, thankfully, on Facebook, which means you can, obviously when it's on a replay or it's been recorded. But I guess you could say it's kind of a bit my guilty pleasure from there. And then again, I also got there's ones from Sweden. Sometimes there's a Swedish paranormal group. I'll go and find out what's happening with them. I think Scottish Haunted Scotland or Scottish Paranormal, I think it is. I'll go into there and have a bit of a squizzy. I'm like, oh, what's happening in Scotland? So I love it because it's almost like, and this, gosh, don't pick your poison when it comes to anyway around America. I mean, there's so many that come up in America, heaps and heaps, all different, all on the west side and east side as well. There's so many different ones, and I love, we were sort of watching Paranormal Quest as well. That's another one I love watching too. They've got some great investigations. Met those guys, fabulous people, and that kind of helps as well because when you've met these people and you get to watch their investigations, like, oh, they're going to this place because you actually know them and you've been on an investigation. It kind of, as if I'm not going to watch what else they're doing. So, but yeah, I think there's a couple. I like watching different ones all around the world personally because you get to see all different ideas, different accents, different locations without actually having to leave your chair.
Yeah, that's the bit, isn't it? Don't have to leave your chair to get your cat balls out.
Yeah, exactly. That's it.
They do it for you.
Richard, what's your guilty pleasure?
Me, a little bit of Ghost of Britain, and that's about it. I don't tend to watch any other live streams. I might watch the occasional live stream / podcast, when they sort of go live. But apart from that, it's sort of just that really.
Ooh. Keep it simple. Nice.
Ooh. Keep it simple.
Yeah, he does that, Richard. He likes to keep it simple, but he does like to listen to a podcast or two more than watch.
Well,
don't you? You're more a listener.
I will put a podcast on sort of late at night just before I go to bed, and I usually fall asleep listening to them.
Nice.
And that's my nice little bedtime routine. There's a couple of good podcasts out there which I enjoy listening to.
Well, give them a shout out, Richard.
Give them a shout out. There's Paranormal X, and what's the other one? It's the one you like as well. Is it The Other Side of Midnight? They're
possibly. I can't remember. I flip in and out of so many different things. It's untrue.
Yeah.
I've even been hitting on true crime lately.
That does sometimes spill over, doesn't it, into the paranormal realm, doesn't it?
I've even been looking at behavioural science quite a lot recently.
Even though these sort of shows are strictly paranormal. We done a show last week, didn't we, on Jack the Ripper?
Yeah.
And,
we had Russell Stephen Edwards in the studio talking about Jack the Ripper last week. Fascinating. And to do that walk, that's just brilliant.
Yeah. Oh, yes. I did my first Jack the Ripper walk almost a year ago to the day because it was coming up to Halloween. So I literally took about 3 or 4 days off work and did all this Halloween stuff. I'm like, I'm doing it before we go under lockdown. That's it. And that was one of the things that I've never done it before, and it was just fascinating. And I think I also went to the museum as well, which I found was interesting. Again, I know there's also people who can actually do ghost hunts and or investigations there as well through a particular organisation too. So I thought that would be interesting to be in that building with all that setup and seeing, exploring the idea of possibly sort of haunted objects and all that sort of stuff. So yeah, really interesting. But yeah, Jack the Ripper is a very obviously synonymous. It's London. It's let's celebrate a serial killer. Oh my gosh, my mum come from Australia. Convicts.
Yeah, only in London, folks. We got a very own Jack the Ripper. We're keeping him. And because we don't quite know who he is, or do we? If you listen to last week's show, you might have a clearer idea of who that is. Then, you know, that I think was the mystery of it all, and that tied into that. And I think with the Penny Dreadfuls tied into that, with the Victorian era, we did a show on Penny Dreadfuls, and that the folklore that's come off the back of that and got legs of its own, like Spring Hill Jack and stuff like that. It's just incredible. You're in the best place, London. I mean, God, it's like amazing. Britain is amazing.
Yes.
It's got history tied with folklore that has evolved and changed and grown a life of its own in a way that, I mean, I'd like to say it's unique in the world. Right?
It absolutely is. And that's literally one of the big draw cards of me moving over to the other side of the world, is because there's so much here. There's so much fabric. Like, again, in Australia, yes, there is, but it's all spoken word, because it's beautiful Indigenous Australian people for 70,000 of years, you know, have this fabulous culture and the beautiful dream time and what they and how they believe with death and ancestors. But yet it's all spoken word. Here it's actually written. You've got 2,000 years of written history, of folklore, and it's different aspects of it as well. It's all these different, you know, you've got your Celtic bits, and you've got you've got Romans, and it all just melds in, and it's just fascinating. And you can see, like I said, obviously, I love when I ever go to York. It's, you know, it's the only sort of town that I know of where it's got a representation of every area and proper sort of section of English history in this one town. You can see a representation of it. It's like fascinating. It's like walking through a museum. Like, these are the stuff in Australia when you're looking through history books, if you're doing ancient history or even modern history. You know, I'm now walking through these streets as opposed to looking in a book. And to me, that always fascinates me. Always has with this country. It's just, never give yourself enough credit for this place. It's amazing.
Yeah, I love York. That's one of my favourite places in the country. I have family up there. That's a little shy to me, though. That's like my city.
Nice. I can understand you utilising that profusely.
Yes, most definitely. I need to go back up there as well. I haven't been up there for a couple of years. But it is that, isn't it? It's that hodgepodge of, you know, in London, it's even down to street names, and you turn and then you've got an old building next to a really modern building, and, you know, it all melds together and it ties together in a way that, and no disrespect to other countries, but they're quite young in their history, because it was, like you say, even America, a lot of it, Native American stuff, was all word. It was all word, you know, passed down. And then that then bleeds out into the other cultures who, you know, emigrated over there, unfortunately, you know, and all that side of things. And you only sort of, I think Europe, in certain areas of Europe, you get the same sort of vibe of that historical, but it doesn't gel the way, it hasn't meshed together in the way it does in the UK. Like, you can go to Greece and view the ancient Greek temples and stuff like that, but it's almost like little bubbles rather than it merging into one. Even in Athens, I've been to Athens, I've done that, and it's almost like the Parthenon is like the bubble there, and you know what I mean, it's like bubbles, and although they live it and it's sprawled out around it, it's fascinating, but it's sections of history rather than layers of history.
You're right. And it's that for some reason it's this wonderful fabric that's kind of woven together into this lovely blanket, and it's just all these bits and pieces, and you just, you know, even just I'm just so lucky to live here, and you know, so many people have said to me, why did you move over to the UK? Like, Australia's weather is way better. Like, it's not about the weather. If it was about the weather, I would have stayed in Australia.
One thing we haven't got, folks, is the weather.
It's the history, and more importantly for me, as you guys will understand, it's the paranormal history. And that's the thing that I actually really love. Like, it's you've got that there, the information's there. There's so many fantastic and historic locations, and the history and the sightings and the ghost stories and the paranormal activity that people have experienced. It's just so vast, it's so huge, and such a tiny piece of this tiny island that we sit in. You know, I wouldn't want to be anywhere else. I really don't.
We are very lucky, I would say that in that respect. And there's like so many locations which you do like to go out and experience. You know, you're always out and about normally. Where have you been out and about to recently? I think you went down to Dorset a little while ago, didn't you?
I did. I wasn't able to do too much spooky stuff there, although there's a couple of spooky things that were happening in this place that I stayed at. I was like, oh, no, there's a couple of little sort of knocks and bangs and here and there and rappings. And I'm thinking, okay, is somebody trying to get my attention, or is it just the building itself? So I took that as a bit of a, okay, so I'm going to take that as more of an environmental thing as such. But I do have a paranormal investigation I'm attending on the Saturday night before Halloween, which is a particular location, obviously undisclosed location. Sorry, people. I know I'm a bit of a party pooper.
Oh my God! So. No spoilers out of Beth. God.
It's all locked in the vault. So yeah, it's and that's a proper investigation. So. And it's it's going to be really interesting with a great group of people that I've met before, and I'm really looking forward to that because I haven't really done a lot over the summer. But just before the summer, there was a couple of locations I went to. I went to Staffordshire, did some filming there with a lovely team of people. Some great areas that we went into. They've got again so much history about it. Right near the border. I think they call it 3 Shires. Was one area that we went to. So literally standing across the river, and you can go to one shire, and then you go across the other part of the river. It's another shire, and then literally, and back in the day, they would actually have people that would commit crimes in one shire, and then they jump over across the river, go ha ha ha, no, you can't get me. So
yeah, we've got things like that in the UK.
That's right. So it's like exactly. That's like I'm proud to be half British. You know what I mean? So it's like awesome. I'll pay that. So it's, but it was amazing. So the history of that particular location and seeing if anything was happening there and all sorts of stuff. So yeah, there's been a couple I've done recently, but the one I'm on the night before actual Halloween, I'm really looking forward to. I'm going to be absolutely tired as all get out by the time Halloween does actually finish because I've got like 4 days on full on, like going to the Victor Wilde Museum, all sorts of stuff I'm doing. I've got the London Underground dungeon experience going on there. They've got a Halloween special. I'm like, well, I'm going to have to go to that. Like, I've investigated that location quite a few times, and there's been some really interesting activity there because that's the beautiful psychology of it all, where you're walking into a building that is literally made to make you scared, but all you can smell is plastic because of all the hanging like dolls and and yet everything's all switched off, and yet you've got to sit there and try and think about the phenomena that you're looking at, trying to see whether or not anything's happening. And again, years ago, I've had some interesting experiences. So again, to be able to get all sorts of stuff, I'm going to be a very tired lady on the 1st of November. No wonder they call it All Saints Day.
Yeah, you're going to be like, just sleeping. I need to sleep.
Yes. So I look like a corpse.
Yeah. I've got my Halloween costume already made. I'm so tired.
I won't have to put any dark circles under my eyes, sweetheart. They'll be there.
Tell me about the Victor Wilde Museum. Is that at the Last Tuesday Club?
It is. And that's the thing is I want to do a little bit more research on that because I've only just come across it. I'm thinking, that seems really intriguing. I don't know anything about this. So I think I'm going, it's about a week and a half from now at the time of this recording is when I'm actually going to go. So it's going to be very interesting. And out of all the different venues that I'm going to, and I've mentioned them a couple of times on social media to people, that's the one venue that gets the most people's attention.
Right. Well, I've heard of it, but it's going on like you, Kerry, a bit sort of what's it all about?
It's more when we went to Curiosities of the Fifth Corner. Yeah, with Henry. Yeah, Henry and him are sort of like basically one and the same, but he's in London, Henry's down our way. So you're looking at occult and Victorian memorabilia and all sorts of weird and wonderful. It's an eclectic mix of stuff, and that's what I take from that. But he's very much like built up like a museum from this as well. So from what I understand, because I haven't been there, haven't been to the Victor Wilde Museum, like the Last Tuesday Club, I think he's very much like Henry. That's how I would put it together.
Yeah, sort of Victorian curios and things
that
like
sort
that.
of thing. From what I understand, I could be completely wrong on that. So Beth would have to tell me all about that when she's
Well,
been.
yeah, she'll have to come back on and tell us about it.
Like things
Oh,
in specimen bottles and,
oh
like
yeah.
that sort of thing, and alchemy and all that sort of scenario, I think is what, because Henry goes there and buys artifacts from him and vice versa. It's part of that world
Right.
of business, I think is what it is. So I think if we went, we would see a lot of parallels with Curiosities of the Fifth Corner.
And that's what I said. I thought, why not just chuck that into the mix? Another thing is, I've been to the old operating theatre, and I thought that was fascinating.
That's on my bucket list to
Oh,
do.
so fascinating. I mean, it's very small, and I believe
Yeah.
at one point there were actually people that were doing paranormal investigations in that particular area as well. So I think, as I was like, that would have been awesome. But it's I imagine, particularly in our COVID times, it would have been very interesting to try and do a paranormal investigation. Trying to make sure everyone's socially distanced. But oh my word, it is fascinating, because you sit there and you look like they use that. So, and again, I'd love it with the lights off and sitting in that operating theatre and just going, okay, anybody want to have a go at the person that hacked you open? Now's your time. That's what I would love.
It is that thing. It's those little little niches, isn't it? Those little locations that, they don't look alike. You think, like even the Ripper Museum. It's not very big, is it? It's just like a house. You know what I mean? That houses, again, period type things, but give you a glimpse into what it was like. And how many times have we said in the paranormal field, when we've looked at older cases and gone, you have to put yourself at that point in time. Yes. You can't look at it through modern eyes. You have to look at it how they saw it, and that would bring you better understanding. When we was looking at paranormal in the Bible, people look at it from modern eyes and translate it literally, and it's, Matt Arnold was like, no, you have to look back. You have to put yourself almost like how they viewed those things back then. It's not literal. It's analogical, and it's a way of spiritually explaining something in their way of understanding it. We come back to translation, don't we? And understanding it and bringing it to a more understandable audience, which Matt Arnold, for that side of things, is absolutely fantastic at. We've had him on a couple of times talking about paranormal in the Bible, the religious aspect, the belief systems and the religious aspect. And they play a huge part in the paranormal. And you can't discount that, can you?
No, you can't. And it's just fascinating. Like we talk about, it's the rabbit warren thing going on. You start to dig on, oh, there's this angle, oh, there's this place, and oh, okay, this looks good, and digging more and more, and obviously, like, particularly from religious paranormal perspective, I can only imagine. Like for me, a lot of the talks I've given over the years has been about the difference between demonology and exorcism, because a lot of people actually get them mixed up. And they seem to think, well, to be a demonologist, you need to be an exorcist. Well, actually, you don't. No. If anything, they actually should stay separate. And because of modernization of TV programs saying, I'm a demonologist and I cast this out, it's like, actually, demonologist doesn't mean that. You actually, it's demonology isn't a belief in demons. Demonology is a study of them.
Yeah.
Exorcism, and that's where the problem is. And so again, I've just given away one of my most amazing talks in one sentence. So, but essentially, I go into the whole background of it and where it all comes from and why people feel that way, and people are piecing it out and stuff like that. But it's true, it's that sense. So a lot of it, again, I find it very fascinating when religion is brought into paranormal investigating, because to me, I believe it should be taken out. I think you should leave any religious beliefs out when you're looking at possible phenomena. And that's, again, it's very difficult. And even your own beliefs. Okay, so I'm impartial to the possibility of an afterlife, but when I'm investigating phenomena, that needs to leave the door. I need to be as neutral as possible. So, and I think for me, for myself as an investigator, I personally make sure that any potential religious beliefs I may hold needs to also be left out as well. So...
very difficult to do sometimes if you don't recognize them within yourself. And it's about knowing yourself, knowing your own belief systems that are in place before you even go in there. I'm very aware of my own personal belief systems, and I do, when I'm talking like this, put them out there. my belief systems are this, blah, blah, blah. You know, we talk about various topics. But when I'm investigating something, I try really hard not to overlay that onto what I'm actually physically doing, like investigating. We'll try and bring different perspectives from lots of different areas. And that leads us down into folklore. I love a bit of folklore. I have to say, I'm a sucker for a bit of folklore. In fact, so much so, this is a rabbit hole, guys. This is a show coming up for you guys that you might be interested in. We're going to be looking at heraldry. Heraldry, is that how we say it, Richard?
Heraldry, yes. This is something you brought to the table. So, yeah, I'll be interested to see how this one pans out.
Yeah, basically, shields. You know, like you've got a shield and you've got like the symbology.
Coats of arms.
On the shield. Yeah, coats of arms and things like that.
Ooh.
How does that tie into the paranormal? Folklore, guys, that's all I'm saying on that one.
Oh, so many avenues with that. Oh my gosh, you could go so many avenues with that.
Exactly.
So people's seeing apparitions, what they saw, how they described it. Is it something you could tail it back to? Like, you know, my mind, this is a good show topic.
Exactly. When I first brought that to the table, they were like, what? That's coats of arms, really? I was like, oh no, honestly, when you start delving into it and why they have this on a coat of arms and how this got on there and blah blah, and they were like, oh, okay then. So yeah, that's coming up.
Yeah, we'll give it a go.
We'll have a go at that one.
Brilliant. I can't wait for that one.
So got some. Yeah, we've got some great topics coming up. We sat and brainstormed the other night. Love a brainstorm. That's another thing that we have to do in the paranormal, isn't it? So you get something come to the table, you have to have a brainstorm about it because different people have different opinions and different perspectives. And you'll be surprised at where you go with the brainstorm. Isn't that right, Beth?
Oh, absolutely, 100%. And like I said, that's what I love about paranormal conventions and meeting people. Like I said earlier, it's sort of like networking. You come across people going, well, I saw it this way, and like, get out of town. Like, it's like I didn't even think of it that way. Or you'll go to a lecture, or you'll have a chat with somebody, and you sit there and think, oh, I saw it this way, or this angle, or I actually thought, like someone said to me about data transference when it came to someone being abducted by an alien. And I'm thinking, okay, it's a very far out version of what I would have thought, but at the end of the day, look, you know what? That's something I haven't thought of. I said, how did you come across that? Like, well, where did this idea come from? I was like, it's my theory when I've had my own experience. I'm like, okay, what do you mean by data transference? Like, is it like from person to person? Is it just, and anyway, the conversation obviously grew from there, but it's like, you know what? I'm not going to dismiss it. I'm just going to go, you know what? I'm going to at least listen, just actually listen. So.
When you think of that, though, in my head, I've gone binary code. When I think binary code, I think there are levels of autism, and they see things in binary code in a way that you do it on a computer. It's binary code and stuff like that. And when you start delving into that particular rabbit hole, oh my God, folks.
Yeah, you get the autism and the savants and stuff. That's an absolutely fascinating area of research, I should imagine, to go down.
And then when you start looking at, I know Rendlesham is a very controversial topic in itself, but apparently they were downloaded with binary codes that came out later. And that then led to that island, Brazil. Oh, what was it called?
High Brazil.
High Brazil. Yeah, all that sort of thing. And when you start delving, again, see, one little thing that Beth brought to the table there, right? In my head, I'm thinking, show idea.
Yeah. Yep, do it, run with it. And I'll be listening.
Oh my God. See, and this is how you get to things. This is how you get to things. And that expands your knowledge. And you think, God, that doesn't have anything to do with the paranormal. But by the end of the week, you're thinking, God, this is totally paranormal. Yeah, this is so linked in. And it's important to know these things. Because you come across something like that, you go, oh yeah, that ties into that. Oh my God, synchronicities. Oh my God, coincidences. Oh my God. And it is just a fascinating world.
Absolutely. And that's the best thing, as I said, and all it is starts from people having conversations, people talking, people getting together, people being open-minded as well. It's like having an open-minded idea about, what happens in the world, or going, actually, like you said, and bringing topics out and conversing. And and that's the one thing I must admit, out of COVID and the whole situation, that's one thing I absolutely dearly miss. But gradually it's starting to happen. Hopefully it will continue. We have no idea what the autumn and winter will happen at the time of this recording in this fantastic country. but hopefully we'll be able to continue on some level and continue that as well. That's one thing I miss the most.
Yeah, that connection of people is so, so important, isn't it? It's just, that's the thing I think most people suffered with, was the connection to people, physical connection. It was all well and good talking over Skype or on the phone or FaceTiming and all stuff like that, but that actual physical togetherness, that shared energy of people was so sorely missed. I cannot wait to go to a concert.
Oh yeah, yep.
You know, or a show, a theatre show. I've sorely missed theatre, is what I would say, of all the things that I missed through lockdown. I love that sort of thing. And yeah, I can't wait. You know, I've done the basics like the pub and the restaurant and, you know, stuff like that. But the bigger events now is what I'm sort of yearning for personally. What are you yearning for next?
Oh, just more businesses feeling comfortable about people going in and investigating their properties, people feeling more comfortable about people coming back in, because now, of course, you know, there's the whole vaccination thing going on. I don't want to go into that area because I know it can be highly, talked about and hot topic. But, you know, again, there are some people that are like, you know, I've got this activity happening on my home, but they may feel that they need to have they may not be vaccinated, or they may enforce vaccinations themselves for people coming in. You don't know. It's still such a grey area. We'd be able to actually actively go in and helping people physically when it comes to actual cases. So I think some people are still apprehensive with that. So yes, there's you can actually help with phone calls and emails, but it's really helps if you're actually physically there to help to look at the phenomena or help them sort of piece that out as well. So I think, to me, I'm looking forward to that being easier to happen. You know, literally, because we're gradually coming out of this, but we're not out of it. We're nowhere near out of it. So it's from that perspective. And public events, I'm so happy to say, you know, I've been to a few and I'm loving it, and it's great. And of course, they're obviously government guidelines how they were all doing it and making sure everything's okay and everyone's safe and all that sort of thing. And that's fantastic. Don't get me wrong at all. But it's the private and residential case of people where, again, you know, yes, it's a free service. It's just the paranormal. But when you're scared in your own home and you haven't got anyone to actually come in and actually look at it and go, okay, this can be explained. This can be explained. I need to look at this further. I think I'm missing that. And I think that's part. I'm hoping that once all this starts to find its way out, that we can get to some normality with that again. It may take a long time yet, but that's something I'm missing.
Yeah, Richard.
Yes, I think sort of like along those lines, and I think Beth sort of touched on it a bit. I mean, we still don't know what's going to happen. I mean, I'm quite comfortable with the way things are going at the moment. We're slowly coming out of it and sort of starting to do a lot of stuff that was sort of we couldn't do before. But, you know, I like to try and be optimistic and think, you know, we have sort of reached the start of the end of this whole pandemic episode. Well, let's hope so anyway.
Fingers crossed on that. But if the worst happens and we get locked down again, at least we do have more access than we ever have had before in regards to information, talks, and networking that we wouldn't have had 5 years ago, 10 years ago.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? And you can reach out to people and they will talk to you, you know?
Yep.
We do that. We do it regularly on the show, you know, reach out to people and they come on and we talk to them and we have fantastic conversations like we have had tonight. We're coming to the end of the conversation, guys, believe it or not, end of the show.
Wow.
Yeah.
I know. That went quick again, didn't it? Right, yeah. Beth, where can people find you? Where can they go and see your work?
It's all centered around my fantastic website, www.accessparanormal.com. And from there, you'll be able to find me on Facebook and also on Twitter and on Instagram as well.
Awesome. And are we going to expect a book anytime soon?
Oh my gosh! If I had $1 for anyone who said that, but no, if I had £1 stunned for anybody who said that I would be. Yeah, at some point, yes, but it needs to be something different, but something that's going to be of a different angle, because there's lots of fantastic information out there already with people's experiences and historical information. It's amazing, but it needs to be something that's practical and easy and good. So there will be at some point. Don't pin me on a date just yet.
No, I'm the same. Everyone keeps saying to me on my crystal stuff, write a book, and I'm like, yeah, one day I'll get to it. One day I delve in. I'm not committed, I think is the expression. Yes. I'm not committed to sitting and writing. I'm not a natural writer, but
I'm stealing that.
yeah, I'm not committed to it at the moment. Richard, what is new for the Paranormal Concept family?
The Paranormal Concept Show, nothing exactly new. We've got the website. If people would like to go over there, there's a few bits and pieces people can do via our website. They can check our complete back catalogue of shows. They can check out blogs we have written throughout the year, and also we've got a few publications that are available, and this can all be sourced through our website, which is www.paranormalconcept.com.
Perfect. On that note, I'd like to say thank you so much, Beth, for joining us.
Thank you for inviting me again. It's been always amazing chatting to you guys. Always have so much fun.
And you're going to have to come back and tell me all about those projects that you haven't been able to divulge.
Hopefully I'll be able to by then, yes.
Thank you once again for being an amazing guest. We love having you on the show. It's always a pleasure. On that note, we're going to bid you all a very farewell. Until next time, say good night, guys.
Good night, guys.
Bye.